Hi, it's Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Michelle. I make videos about books. Please hit the subscribe button. It really helps my channel grow. In this video, I will be reading 3 thrillers that have a podcast feature. Now, I don't listen to podcasts, okay? Like, if I'm going to listen to something, it's going to be an audiobook because I'm a big reader and I just want to read books. However, I love books that incorporate podcasts. Some of my favorite books, like Sadie by Courtney Summers and The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead, have podcast features that I think really help the story. So I'll be reading 3 thrillers that have podcast features because I fucking love them. And so let me show you what I'm reading. The first one is The Night Swim by Megan Golden. This is actually a reread. I read this when it came out in 2021 and it reminded me so much of Sadie by Courtney Summers that I was absolutely obsessed with it. I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars. The only thing is I want to read Dark Corners and I don't remember anything about The Night Swim. Now I think technically you can read Dark Corners without reading The Night Swim. However, I love The Night Swim so much that I want to reread The Night Swim. So I will be reading the Rachel Crawl duology as it is now. And I'm hoping that Dark Corners still has the podcast feature because she's quite literally a podcaster. So I'm going into Dark Corners not knowing and just hoping that there's a podcast feature. Now there's one other book for this video, and that is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I actually didn't know that this had a podcast feature when I got it. I went to an event with Lisa Jewell and got to meet her, and she was talking about the book, and people were talking about the podcast feature. So I am super excited for this. I have only read one Lisa Jewell that I did for a video that got deleted. RIP. And I didn't really like it, but I've heard so many good things about this book, so I am pumped. So reading thrillers that have podcast elements in them, roll the vlog. I am 29% into The Night Swim. Like I said, this is a reread and I'm rereading it because I want to reread. No, I want to read Darkest Corners. Dark Corners? Dark Corners. Anyway, I think I read this in 2021 or 2022, so I don't remember much about it. I am reading it and things are coming back, like I'm starting to piece it together again. But we're following a podcaster, Rachel Crawl, who is going, I think she's in like a seaside North Carolina town from what I'm guessing, and she is podcasting a rape trial. And the rape trial is really reminiscent of the Brock Turner case, which is unfortunate because that was awful. She gets a note on her car from this woman named Hannah to look into her sister's death 25 years ago. And I absolutely love this book. Like, I still love it. And the reason that I love it is because of the podcast feature. Like, there is the second time you hear the podcast, she's in a field and you can hear the wind behind her and like everything rustling around. And I remember I read this after I had read Sadie by Courtney Summers, and it was giving me the same vibes as that because in Sadie, there's like a clock ticking, there's like cars in the background. So I feel like with this podcast feature, it just goes above and beyond, like with the background noises. And I feel like this is why I love books with podcast features so much. And once again, I don't listen to podcasts. Like, that's not a thing. If I want to listen to something, I'm going to listen to an audiobook. But like, books with podcast features are just so good. So 29% in, I'm still loving it. I really can't remember anything about this. Like I said, I'm piecing some things together again, but like, I'm gonna be shocked again when I find out who did everything. So a couple things. I'm 66% in. I don't reread books a lot. There's only a couple of books that I have reread, and that is because I am so afraid that I loved a book the first time and I'm not gonna love it the second time. But honestly, that shouldn't be a problem for me because I have the memory of a goldfish and can't remember anything that I have just read basically ever. So I think I read this back in 2020 actually when it came out and gave it 5 stars, and it still feels like a 5-star. And it's because I can't remember anything. Like, it feels like I am reading it again for the first time. So this is great news. I personally, I'm gonna start over. What? Okay, I'm just gonna keep that in so you can see my thought processes. So this storyline, we're following 2 different stories. So Rachel Crawl, the podcaster, is there for the rape case. So we are in the courtroom with Rachel as it's going over the rape case, which is very interesting and also very sad and also very infuriating because it's a small North Carolina town and it's a red town, and it's very frustrating for anyone really, but maybe also for mostly women or people who identify as women. So I'm just saying. I remember this from the last time. There is another case that, or not like case, but she's kind of sort of investigating something from 25 years ago. And I remember not liking that plotline as much as the rape plotline, and I still feel the same way. But it's still just as interesting. It's just like not as interesting. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but so I'm really liking this. It still feels like a 5-star, and I should reread things more often because I can't remember shit. I finished The Night Swim again. I absolutely love this. It's still a 5-star read for me. And then once I figured out what was happening, I figured it out again. Not again, but like, I guess again. So like I knew what was going to happen, and I hadn't felt that way for like the majority of the book. So that's good that I actually remembered something. But this is still a 5-star read. I am going to go into Dark Corners by Megan Golden, which is the sequel to The Night Swim. I'm 100% not sure if it has the podcast feature, but like Rachel Crawl, who is the main character, her job is being a podcaster. So I can only assume that it will still be about a podcast. So that's why I'm going to do it for this video. The podcast feature on this was really important, I think, but also I don't think it was represented super well because the podcast like episode was very short, which is not normally the case, at least for podcasts that I have listened to. Like, they're at least a half an hour long, right? And these are not. This was just like a summary of what was happening in the courtroom. But I think as a reader, it was a good length. But if it was like a real podcast, it's probably too short. But I'm excited for Dark Corners. I absolutely love this book. I loved it back in 2020 when I read it, and I wasn't like a thriller reader back then. And I still really like, this is just a good book. It's a really good book. I am 30% into Dark Corners. It does have to deal with the podcast. I figured it would, but I honestly didn't even look into it before I picked it up. I was just like, obviously this will have a podcast feature. And it does. It has the same theme music. It has the same narrator. It has everything is the same. So in Dark Corners, we are following Rachel Crawl literally right after the events of The Night Swim, which in my opinion is smart. She is leaving North Carolina and driving home, and she gets a call from an FBI agent, and they're like, hey dude, we need you to come to Florida. So she hops a flight to Florida, where she is taken to a prison to talk to an inmate, and now she's just trying to get information on this inmate. A lot of stuff is happening. In my opinion, too many things are happening at once. In The Night Swim, only 2 things were happening. We had 2 storylines. We had the rape storyline in the courthouse, and then we had Hannah's murdered sister storyline. And in my opinion, that was good. In this one, a lot of things are happening, and I am extremely tired right now. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm tired. And I am having a hard time caring, connecting, everything. So the one storyline is the one that I told you with the inmate. Now, there's another storyline where someone, influencer who went to visit the same inmate that Rachel Crow went to visit is missing, presumed dead. So they're trying to figure that out. And now there is another storyline of this guy whose name I don't think we know, and he's a ride share. He's like an Uber driver. Uber, is that right? Anyway, okay. And something is going on with him. Is he a killer? Anyway, at least I figured out what these fucking palm leaves are, and that's because she's in Florida. Because that was really bothering me. I was like, what does this have to do with dark corners? But now I know. So that makes me feel better. Like I said previously, I'm a little bored and I am tired, but I'm not liking this storyline as much as the night swim. I thought that her going into like a courtroom was really fascinating. Now, however, a little backstory for me, I did my counseling internship in a jail, and that kind of scarred me for life. So the fact that she has been to a prison and she's like inside the prison and she's like describing the prison gives me flashbacks of my internship in the jail. Not like I was even in jail, but I spent a lot of time in that jail. And so like I don't really like to read about jail or prison. So that's just like a personal thing. But in my opinion, I'm not liking this as much as, like, I love The Night Swim. I fucking love that book. And this one, not yet. I am 66% into Dark Corners. I think I didn't read last night, so I didn't update last night, but I'm pretty sure in my first update I said I was bored, and I am still bored. I think what was really captivating about The Night Swim was the podcast feature, and Dark Corners has way less of the podcast feature. So I really don't think that that's working for this book. God, there were so many chapters about her going to an influencer event that I know is important overall, but literally was just so fucking boring. And once again, it's 8:30 and I feel like I could just fall asleep while listening to it. And it's a real bummer because I love The Night Swim, and The Night Swim, like rereading The Night Swim, that was the whole reason that I wanted to do this particular video, because I love The Night Swim and the podcast feature. And I understand Megan Golden. She wanted to have Rachel Craw do something completely different and it not be anything like the case in The Night Swim. But the case in The Night Swim was so much better. And like I said, this not having as much as the podcast feature like The Night Swim had is not helping this book. So this is right now sitting at a 3, which isn't bad, but I'm not gonna keep it. So now I'm gonna have an incomplete series. Ugh. I fucking hate that. I hate that it's putting me to sleep. Ugh. I finished Dark Corners, and my review on Goodreads says, I don't want to be mean, but what was the point of this book? It was so boring. So I guess that is mean and I'm being mean, but either keep the podcast feature in and make Rachel Craw interesting, or just stop at The Night Swim. Like, The Night Swim was so good, and that is why Rachel Craw got a second book. I get it, because Night Swim is good, but Dark Corners, in my opinion, was unnecessary and not good. Like, it is the next day, and I still felt like this book was going to put me to sleep. Like, also, I am a romance girly through and through. Like, if you've been here for a while, I really got into romance 2 years ago. I have a bunch of romance vlogs. I fucking do rom-comathon. This had a romance. I hated it. It was so stupid. Like, please, there doesn't need to be a romance in every thriller. Like, don't. What? Anyway, I did not like this book. I will be unhauling it. God, if there is a third one, I probably won't buy it, and I will just listen to the audiobook because, girl, I'm really, really disappointed in this. Hey, folding laundry. But I was thinking, oh, hey, you see me? Okay. I was thinking about Dark Corners, and I was talking to Lexi about it because she just read it too, and she gave it 3.5 stars. But I'm gonna lower my star rating to 2 stars, and that's because there's this thing that doesn't make sense to me, but Dark Corners starts right after the night swim. And then the night swim, she takes a bird, a nightingale, from the hotel where she's staying in Neapolis, North Carolina, which is a made-up town. And the bird just disappears in Dark Corners. So it's like Rachel? Who? Megan Golden forgot her own book, and I cannot give it 3 stars. It was not a 3-star book because of how much I did not like it. So I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I'm changing my rating to 2 stars. I am 103 pages into None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. So I think I mentioned that I read The Family Upstairs for a video that never happened, and it was just okay. This is more than just okay, like already 100 pages in. Absolutely love this. So I'm listening to the audiobook, obviously because it's me, but there are so many narrators for this. We have the 2 main narrators, and then we're also getting, like, there's going to be a Netflix special about what has happened with this podcast. So one of the main characters is a podcaster, and she is interviewing Jules? I don't know. Jody? And Jody's life is, I don't want to spoil anything, but Jody's life is fucked up. Her and her husband have an age gap. And when I found out what the age gap was, I screamed out loud, "What?" And Rowan was right there in the room with me. He said, "What?" And it was, when I think age gap, I'm thinking my rom-coms, I'm thinking stuff like that. No, so yeah. But Alex and Jody they are birthday twins. That's how this starts. They have the same birthday, the same year. They were born at the same hospital. So that's how they're introduced. They see each other at a restaurant. They're both celebrating their birthday. They start up a conversation. So now Alex is interviewing Jody, and we're getting to know more about Jody's life. But Jody is kind of weird. Not only is her life weird, she's kind of weird. And she is kind of becoming obsessed with Alex. And she, in my mind, thinks that Alex and her life are perfect, but we know as the reader that Alex's life is not perfect, and we're figuring that out with every chapter. So far, this is excellent, like way already beyond The Family Upstairs. I personally thought that was pretty boring. I gave it 3 stars. 3 stars isn't bad, but like this is not going to be 3 stars already. I absolutely love this. The audiobook is great. I'm loving everything about this. I absolutely dropped the ball on updating about this book. And I just want to say it's because I was so into it that I forgot I had responsibilities about vlogging. But I ended up giving None of This Is True 5 stars. This is one of the best thrillers that I have read this year. No joke. I don't feel like you have to have the audiobook for this one though. And normally I would say you would when there's a podcast feature. And yes, there were like sound effects when you were listening to the podcast recording, but So there is a like Netflix series part of this where they're reenacting things that happened. And in the audiobook, in the book, there's like stage direction, and the audiobook completely skips that, which I did not like. I don't think you should skip anything. Like, just have another narrator come in and read the stage stuff. Before the audiobook, Jenny Walsher, who plays Tori in Heartstopper, is one of the narrators, and I am unsure about who she narrates, but I thought that that was cool. She's narrated a couple other books, so I always like when she does that, but my favorite part about this book is that you don't know what is true, which is why it's called None of This Is True. Like, you close the book and you're just like, what did I just read? In my opinion, in the best way possible. I absolutely love books, especially thrillers that end like that, where you just like don't know and you come to your own conclusions about what has happened. Love that. So 5 stars for None of This Is True. I'm going to do a wrap up. Okay. So this is the wrap up for books that have like a podcast feature. There are a couple of other books that while I was doing this one, I was like, I should have included that one. But I'm having a hard time doing videos with a lot of books. Just because I have so much stuff to read. Anyway, so the first book that I read was The Night Swim. This is a reread. This is by Megan Golden. Absolutely love this book. This is a 5-star book. It was a 5-star book last time I read it. It was a 5-star book this time I read it. I cannot recommend this book enough, especially the audiobook. And like I said, this one reminded me of Sadie by Courtney Summers, and it was because it had like the sound effects for the podcast feature and stuff. However, then I read Dark Corners by Megan Golden, which is the sequel to The Night Swim. They're not really sequels. You can read one without the other. And I would suggest that you skip Dark Corners. I did not like this one. When I finished reading it, I gave it 3 stars. It's not a 3-star book, it's a 2-star book. This is a 2-star book. It's on my Pango. No one has bought it because no, it's not good. There's continuity issues from The Night Swim to Dark Corners, which I haven't seen anyone else talk about, but I didn't like this one. There's also a romance, which I absolutely hated, and I am first and foremost a romance girly. Yeah. And then last, but certainly not least, is None of This Is True. I don't know if I said this, but I buddy read this with Monica from A Little Bit of Monica. I assumed she gave this 5 stars. I think that she did. We never actually talked about it. But we talked a lot about all of the twists. Like, we didn't know what to believe, what was going on. This book made me extremely uncomfortable, and I loved it so much. I don't have it because I handed it to Castleman because he's not like a thriller dude, but I think he would like this one. It just feels like something that a lot of people would like, and I honestly think that he would like this one. So this went overall pretty well. I got 2 5-star reads. I'm so glad I reread The Night Swim. It is an excellent book, and so is None of This Is True. Both excellent books. If you have any more recommendations for me with books that involve any kind of podcast feature, please let me know. I would love to read more. I think I have The Butcher and the Wren, which I thought about as I was finishing this one and finishing this video. Let me know if that one does have the podcast feature, and I would love to read that as soon as possible. But yeah, that was this video. Short and sweet. Once again, don't listen to podcasts, but I love the podcast feature in audiobooks. So thanks for watching my video. See you in my next one. Bye!
Losing time, I'm fading fast.